Hello, didn't see you there, sorry about that. You're here to watch a Critical 3 video, are you? Welcome, I hope you subscribe, because apparently over 59% of you that are watching this video right now are not subscribed. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Enjoy the video.
Are you ready?
And action, mate. Good morning, good evening, and good night. How are we all doing? Welcome back to another Critical 3 review. As you can probably tell, Tyler's not here today. It's just going to be me. That's probably for the fact that he's not really a fan of the Saw franchise, and he hasn't seen it yet. I wanted to get this review out as soon as possible, given that it only came out like 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to get this review out as soon as possible. I had quite a few people asked me what my thoughts are, so I thought the best thing I can possibly do is do a review, and then that way you can just watch the video and then you know. So yeah, Spiral, Book of Saw, the reboot of the Saw franchise. Of course, we had Jigsaw, which was an attempt at rebooting the Saw franchise. It didn't go down too well, did it? Let's face it, it wasn't the greatest in the slightest bit. They kind of took everything that Saw's known for and took it out and just made it, standard horror. Whereas Saw, for me, the reason why it's, successful and one of the reasons why I enjoy it is because it's very unique on the way that it's shot. The traps and the pain and agony that's shown through the way that it's done, through the shots and stuff like that, is done really well. That's something that Jigsaw didn't pick up on, and I'm sure a lot of you will be glad to hear that Spiral from the Book of Saw does pick up that same eeriness, that same sense of panic, that same sense of distress that the past Saw films did. When I'm referring to the past Saw films, I'm probably talking about the first 3 or 4, bar the first one. The first one obviously only really had, your initial trap where he's cutting off his leg essentially. That's really the only time you get that. But obviously throughout 2, 3, and 4, you get that all the time with each trap. So it's something that throughout the whole, to be fair, even up to 7, even up to the final chapter, you had it as well. So that's what Saw was known for. That is the body of Saw, of the Saw franchise, and Jigsaw just completely disregarded that, and made the death scenes and the traps and stuff like that just like any other film, and it just didn't have that same Saw feel. I remember sitting in the cinema. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't the worst film I've ever seen, and I didn't come out of it going that was bloody atrocious. I come out of it going that was not a Saw film. That's my actual words, that didn't feel like a Saw film. So it was all right, but this is a Saw film. Spiral is a Saw film. Chris Rock obviously had a heavy part to play in it. I believe he produced it and he helped write the script and things like that. So he did a brilliant job, I must say. And throughout the film, his acting, the way he portrays his character's one of the police force detective, and the way he goes about that is really good. And Samuel Jackson's in it as well, plays his dad in it, so he's good. Obviously Samuel Jackson's always good. They work really well together as a son and father pairing, just overall really good casting between the two of them. For the chemistry they had on scene, the chemistry they managed to bring on screen was really good. In terms of the story. Now, I'm not gonna do it spoilers for the first part, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put either this side or this side, probably up here, just a little icon to say spoilers, just so when I go into the spoilers, if you haven't seen it, switch off if you don't want it to get spoiled for you. All right. But spoiler free on discussing the story. Obviously, if you don't want to know anything, then click off. I'll just try and discuss what's in the trailer, essentially. All right. So, of course, we know it's a Saw film. We know that there's going to be some sort of killer. We know normally what the ultimatum is behind the traps, behind people, being killed in the way that they do. And, the traps are set to get out of. Of course, part of the Saw franchise, we had it where they were impossible to get out of. But yeah, the whole purpose of it is it's like a revitalise, like a just sense of justice, a sense of rehabilitation, for the person that's done these bad things or whatever. This one is all revolving in the police force. I think it's fair to say that. It's all about the police force, things like that. Chris Rock's character's dad was an ex-policeman and he was the chief of police. So you kind of get that stir in the pot. Something not quite right there that you kind of get from the offset. Something not quite right. But yeah, overall, the story, very well thought out. It's not a standard Saw story really, because normally it wouldn't be primarily focused on the police. Of course, we've had police and detectives and things like that killed in the past in the Saw franchise, but we've never all of the victims been the police force. So it was interesting, very interesting. And yeah, so overall my thoughts on the film are really good, and yes, I would like to see a sequel, because the way it ends is great. And yeah, overall, just brilliant. When I was going into that film, I don't think I expected anything more, to be honest. I don't think I expected anything more, which is always good to say, You don't come out. I didn't come out there disappointed, that's for sure. I didn't come out going, oh, you know what I mean? It was really good. I enjoyed it. Now, I'm going to do like a mediocre spoiler. So, it's a bit like, could be teetering on the edge, and then I'm going to go into full spoiler towards the end, alright? So, again, I put like mid-spoiler or like mediocre spoiler or something up there. And then when that changes to spoiler, get out of here if you haven't seen it. But mediocre spoiler is the traps. I'm not going to tell you what the traps are because that would be a spoiler, but there isn't that many. There's not a lot of traps, which is kind of sad because it's one of the main things that Saw is there for, is the invention of the traps, what type of traps they are, what they do. It's always interesting to see what they come up with next, because obviously there's been, what is it, 9 films now with this one, or maybe 10 even. So it's always interesting to see like what can they come up with next. Every single time as well, there hasn't been a trap exactly the same. Every trap's been different, which is so good. Like they haven't had to just like reinvent something. Of course, on the Saw franchise, we had the ongoing trap of the bear trap, but that was kind of iconic. That was all the way from the beginning. It was iconic. So I suppose that you could say was reused, but it was reused for a reason and a purpose. But yeah, overall, there wasn't that many traps. The traps that were there were good, and there is a specific trap where it's a bit of a what's a better way to put it? There isn't really a better way. A bit of a cock tease, a trap. There's a bit where you kind of get the taste of it, and then it kind of cuts away, and you have to wait a bit for them to actually see what happens. So that was frustrating because you just want to see it happen. You know what I mean? Because it builds up. This is one thing as well about the film. This is probably, I'm trying to think if there is but now I can't think. No, this is probably the scariest Saw there's been, not in jump scares, which is something that I really applaud Saw for. There isn't the jump scares in there that you get in all these other horror films, and they're just so easy to do. This builds suspense and then keeps you on that suspense. So the reason why it annoyed me that the trap cut away is because the leading up to that, the suspense you got from it, and the suspense you got, you didn't kind of get almost the payoff, because the payoff of that suspense is the trap. And then you get that adrenaline going, watching the trap unfold. And then, whatever happens, whether they're alive or dead at the end, whatever happens is your resolution. But, that was the only annoying thing of the film for me. I feel like it was so unnecessary. But, whatever. Maybe for some people disagree. Maybe some people thought it was really good. There is also one trap in there which is discussed but not actually shown. And there was a post actually that I saw saying that they had to cut out that specific trap because it was too gory, it was too gruesome. So, pretty interesting. Maybe, because I know they do the X-rated versions where they're not certified. That's the word I was looking for, because they're too gruesome. So you might get like an extended cut version where that is actually shown. The extreme editions, they're called, I think. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see what they define as too gory, given it's a Saw franchise. But I do believe all of the Saw films, I watched the extreme versions of them as well. First off, I never watched the standard version. I think the only one I watched the standard version of was Saw 7, but then I watched Saw 7, the final chapter, and then I watched the extreme version following. But yeah, overall, positive. I come out of that film really positive, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to do next with the franchise. I really am. Now, we're going to spoilers for the last section of the video. Probably going to discuss it for about 5 minutes with the spoilers. Sorry about my chair. I am getting a new one. It keeps squeaking. It's really, really annoying. But spoilers. Alright, so spoilers. Boop, 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 boop. Go away if you haven't seen it. If you're not bothered about spoilers, stick around. So, spoilers. What is there to discuss? The story, I guess. That's the thing we can discuss here. The story is purely based off of, as I mentioned in the video before, the police department. And it's about corruption within the police department. That is purely what of course, as you know, if you've seen it, the Jigsaw Killer is there for. Is, to cleanse the police force. Really interesting concept. Given as well what's happened over the past 2 years, it's hard hitting, really hard hitting, and you do side in this case. You almost side with the Jigsaw Killer in this case, because you're like, yeah, it's not fair, all that they've done. There's cases where that they've just killed someone outright just because they couldn't be arsed with the paperwork, and that happens. Unfortunately, as we know now, it happens in real life. Over the past 2 years, we've found that out more than ever, that it is bad. I feel like before that point, if you didn't have a personal story to tell, you weren't really aware of it. But now you are, very much so. Now we are. So it is a very realistic storyline, in a sense, of how the police force can be. Not necessarily all police forces are like it, but how it can be. And so it's an interesting take. Interesting. Very interesting. And resolution of the film, really good. Obviously, we build up to a sequel where he kind of escapes. Now, the whole that whole end scene, and I have to watch it again, because obviously at this point I've only seen it once, and I have to watch it again. But it, in a way, doesn't really add up, because he kind of goes in the lift and beats the Jigsaw Killer up, and then he knows his dad's gonna die, and comes out of the lift anyway, and lets him go, which then forces him to be arrested. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, bit of a dumb move, mate. But I suppose in the Saw franchise, people are known for making dumb decisions and dumb moves, aren't they? That's kind of, the general gist of it. And that's how they get themselves into, in the first place. But yeah, really interesting. And of course, his dad gets punished because he was supposedly the big deal. He was supposedly the big guy that was in charge of all the corruption. And he basically let it happen. He was letting it happen. But yeah, his son gets punished for it. And his son actually went against the corruption. He actually exposed someone for the corruption as well. And he doesn't die at the end, of course. Or at least we don't think so. Because it kind of cuts off drastically. But, he at least gets arrested. Because he doesn't side with the Jigsaw Killer. Also, of course, as we know, now Chris Rock knows the Jigsaw Killer. And what he looks like. So isn't he a bit screwed? Isn't going to just say, he looks like this. He's going around killing people. So if you see him, arrest him. You know what I mean? It's just one of them, isn't it? I suppose it's on the moral side whether he will say that or whether he'll just let him be. Let him get on with it, because that was kind of what it was. That was his two options, wasn't it? You can even come with me and let your dad die because he was the main guy, who was the main purpose of it. So you should die if you want to side with me, or you stay with your dad, but you get arrested, mate. You get screwed. Yeah, interesting. The end scene and the way that it's kind of filmed and the suspense and how it turns out is really good. A lot of people saying they predicted it, and for me, the Saw franchise is something that I've never been able to predict, which is why I set it so high, in the horror franchise, because the plot twists, I rarely predict it. I don't think I can't recall a time where I've predicted, who it is or what the outcome of the ending's going to be. It's always been like a massive plot twist, and that's why I really enjoy it. And even this time, I thought it was going to be his dad. When I was sat there, I was thinking, is it his dad? Because obviously his dad goes missing, and that's what it kind of leads you to believe almost. And it was kind of too obvious, but sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes they'll throw that in there to make it too obvious, so you go, no, it can't be that. And then it turns out to be. And it's good that they didn't do that. It's good that they didn't scapegoat like that, because, that would have just been too easy. But yeah, to do it as his sidekick that comes in. And then obviously, again, throughout the film, you get little hints that when you look at it, you go, bloody hell, that's so obvious. One in particular where he's looking at the picture of his dad on the wall, and he says, he's the reason why I started doing this. And you think, bloody hell, no way. Crazy. Overall, really good. In terms of rating, I think I'm going to give it a 7, between 7 and 8. I'll give it a 7.5. Now the reason, and I know I've bigged it up, I know I said it's really good, but the reason why I've given it that is because even though the whole feel of the film is really good, there wasn't enough traps in there, which is, one of the main reasons you do go, to see it. Obviously, you get that, get that cringe-worthy gore going, and there wasn't enough of it. And the story was, like I say, okay. It wasn't predictable, and it was, somewhat relevant. But, there was times where it was just a bit like, okay, all right, let's kind of, go. Nah, let's get on with it. So I'll give it a 7.5 to an 8, because I did enjoy it. Where I rank it in the Saw films and where it comes in there, I might do a ranking video of, Saw tier list. I might do that. So look forward to that possibly. And Tyler might join me on that. Hopefully, I'm trying to convince him to watch them all, because he says he's watched a few, but he was one of these that he kind of went, it's the same old, so he stopped watching it. I'm trying to convince him that actually it gets really good towards the end, and it gets very plot twisty and stuff like that. So I'm trying to convince him to watch it. Whether he will or not, that's for another time. But yeah, if he does, we'll do a tier list. If he doesn't, I'll do a tier list and discuss the other Saw films in a little bit further detail. But overall, I hope you enjoyed the video. As I mentioned at the start of the video, make sure you are subscribed, because you get more videos like this. Obviously, for the most part, it's me and Tyler doing the reviews, which is always good because, of course, we get the banter going. It's a little bit difficult doing videos like this because you don't have a conversation. You just have me talking to a camera. So it's a lot more difficult because we kind of bounce off each other when we do it, which is why I always prefer doing it. But I did want to get this out there, which is the reason why I've done this now. Next video coming along should be a review of Army of the Dead. So there's your sneak peek for the next video coming along, or the next review at least. So look forward to that. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.